Hey, it's Ryan with Parts Doctor. In this video, I'll be showing you how to disassemble some of the key components on the Samsung washing machine. Listed in the description below are timestamps and video links to the components that we'll be covering. Let's get started. First, we're going to show you how to replace the vibration sensor. For this repair, unplug or disconnect power to the washer. With access to the back of the washer, now we will need to remove this back cover panel by removing the 4 Phillips screws. Then slide it up and tilt the bottom out and pull down to remove. Now, untwist the wire tie. Then, disconnect the electrical plug by depressing the locking tab. Now, remove the 2 Phillips screws and pull the sensor off. Next, we'll show you how to remove the water inlet valve. For this repair, disconnect power and the water supply to the washer. With access to the back of the washer, we'll first remove these 6 Phillips screws. With the screws removed, slide one of your hands underneath and insert a thin tool like a knife to pry the locking tabs. With the locking clips released, tilt it up and lift it out to remove. Next, remove the 2 Phillips screws on the control panel. With the screws removed, you can now flip the control panel forward. On the water inlet valve, we'll first disconnect the 5 electrical connectors by pushing them off. You shouldn't need to worry about their location, as they each have a different length wire. Now remove the 3 Phillips screws on the valve. Next, gently lift up on the valve on the waterline fittings until the bottom of the valve clears the retainers. Continue to lift up and rotate to slide it out. Continue rotating it up until you have access to the hose clamps. Using a pliers, compress the 2 clamps and slide them down until they are clear of the inlet valve. Now, pull the hoses off the valve and make note of where each hose connects to. The hoses may be stuck and require some force to remove. You may need to use a pliers to help remove the hoses. Be careful not to damage them. Next, we'll show you how to remove the main control board. For this repair, unplug or disconnect power to the washer. With access to the back of the washer, the first thing we'll need to do is remove the back cover by removing these 6 Phillips screws. With the screws removed, slide one of your hands underneath and insert a thin tool like a knife to pry the locking tabs. With the locking clips released, tilt up and out to remove. Next, remove the 2 Phillips screws on the control panel. With the screws removed, you can tip the control panel forward. Now, place your thumbs on the top cover, your fingertips along these 4 locking tabs, and gently push down with your thumb while pulling out and up with your fingers. Continue tipping the cover to release the remaining tabs. Before disconnecting any of the electrical connectors, take a reference photo. Then disconnect all the connectors by simultaneously depressing the locking tabs and pulling up. On this connector, you may need to use a flat blade screwdriver to help depress the tab. Then, remove the wiring harness from the retainers. Next, remove these 4 Phillips screws. Now, gently pry on the locking tabs or on the control board. You may need to use a thin tool like a knife or a flat blade screwdriver. With the board released, you can now remove it from the panel. Next, we'll show you how to remove the drain pump. For this repair, disconnect power and water supply to the washing machine. The drain pump is located on the bottom of the washing machine, so you'll need room to tip the washer on its back. Before tipping it, make sure that all the water is drained out of the washer and tape the lid closed. With the machine tipped on its back, the drain pump is located in the corner here. Now, remove the plastic cover by prying on the edges. This may be difficult. Next, disconnect the 2 electrical connectors. Then, pinch the clamp on each hose and slide the clamp off the drain pump assembly and remove the hoses. Next, using a 12mm wrench or socket, remove the 2 bolts. Before removing the pump housing and bracket, take a photo to document the positioning. Then, remove the 4 Phillips screws. Make note that the shorter screw goes next to the drain fitting. Next, we'll show you how to remove the pulsator. With the lid open, remove the pulsator cap by inserting a flat blade screwdriver into this slot and prying out. Now, using a 10mm socket, remove this bolt. If the pulsator starts to spin, hold it with your other hand. Next, insert a flat blade screwdriver into one of these 3 slots and lift up. Next, we'll show you how to remove the damper rods. For this repair, unplug or disconnect power to the washer. The first thing that we'll need to do is access the back side of the washer to remove the 2 screws that hold the top down. With the 2 screws removed, we'll access the front side of the washer and tape the lid down. With the lid taped down, use a putty knife, approximately 6 inches in on each side, and lift up on the top to release the clips. To release the top, lift up on the rear while sliding the top forward to release it from this clip. Now, we'll repeat the same thing on the other side. With the top free, pull the top forward a couple of inches so it overhangs off the front. Now, you can lift it up and use something to prop it open. With the top propped up, we can now remove the damper rod. Using one hand, lift up on the tub, reach your hand in to lift up on the damper rod, grab it and lift it up and out of the slot. Now, lower it down and out of the bottom slot. Then, lift up and out to remove. Next, we'll show you to remove the clutch assembly. For this repair, disconnect power and water supply to the washer. Also, make sure that all the water inside the washer is drained out, as we'll need to tip the washer on its side. The most common reason to replace the clutch is due to the internal bearings failing. When the bearings fail, the washer may become unbalanced or noisy during the spin cycle. It may leak water, or it may not agitate or spin properly. First thing that we'll need to do is access the back side of the washer to access the 2 screws that hold the top cover down. With the 2 screws removed, we'll now access the front side of the washer and tape the lid closed. Now, using a putty knife approximately 6 inches in on each side, depress the locking clip while lifting up to release the top. With the top released, we'll now need to lift up on the back side of the top cover while pushing it forward to release it from this clip. On the other side, we'll do the same thing. We'll lift up on the back while pushing it forward, and the top is now released. Now, lift up on the top cover and pull it forward slightly so it overhangs off the front a couple of inches. Lift up and use something to prop it open. Next, we'll remove the pulsator by using a flat blade screwdriver and a 10mm socket. Next, remove the pulsator cap by inserting a flat blade screwdriver and prying up to remove. Now remove the bolt. If the pulsator spins, hold it in place with your other hand. With the bolt removed, insert your flat blade screwdriver into one of the slots and lift up to remove. Now, using a Phillips screwdriver, we'll remove the 8 mounting screws that hold down the top cover. The The two back screws may be difficult to access. You may need someone to help you prop open the top while you remove them. With the screws removed, you can now lift off the tub cover and set it aside. Next, we'll use a pipe wrench to remove the tub nut. You'll need a pipe wrench that's about 10 inches long. That way it doesn't hit the tub. The tub nut has reverse threads, so you'll need to turn it clockwise to remove it. With one hand, grasp the tub to hold it in place, while using your other hand to hit the pipe wrench to break the nut free. With the tub nut removed, we can now remove the inner tub of the washer by lifting up on it. To remove it, you may need a second person to help you hold the top open while you do this. If it doesn't come free right away, try shaking it back and forth or jarring it to remove it. If yours is stuck in place like ours is, it may be corroded and stuck in place. If that's the case, you may need to use some penetrating oil and let it soak overnight to help it loosen up, or use a rubber mallet to try to tap it and jar it free. Since our inner tub is stuck in place right now, we're going to skip this step and proceed to the bottom. We'll put the top cover back in place temporarily while we do this. Lower the top cover back down. Align this pin with this hole. Lift up on the back of the washer while you slide it this way. On the other side, do the same thing. Align the pin with the hole. Lift up on the rear while sliding back. Now push down on the front to lock it back in place. And we'll reinstall one of the screws to temporarily hold it back in place. We'll now tip the washer on its side. The washer is heavy, you may need a second person to help you do this. This will give us access to the bottom so we can finish removing the clutch. Using a 10mm socket, we'll remove the two bolts holding on this bracket. Now, slightly bend one side of the bracket to remove it from the slot, then pull it out of the other slot to remove it. Next, using a 17mm socket, remove this nut and the two washers. Now grasp the rotor, pull it towards you to remove it. If this piece is stuck on the rotor, use a socket and a hammer to remove it. Now remove the two electrical plugs on the side of the stator. Squeeze the clips on the side while pulling out to remove. Now remove this electrical plug by squeezing the locking clip on the back side and removing it. Now remove the 5 stator bolts with a 10mm socket. With the last bolt removed, you can now pull it off to remove it and carefully set it aside. Next, remove the cotter pin on the clutch arm, and then slide the clutch motor retainer off of the arm. Next, using a 13mm socket, we'll remove the 6 mounting bolts for the clutch. With the bolts removed, grab onto the clutch and pull it towards you to see if it will remove. If it's still stuck in place, you may need to tip the washer back up and try to hammer it out from the top. Before flipping the washer back up, use a piece of cardboard to set down on the floor to protect it, so when the clutch falls out, it doesn't damage your floor. If you have a rubber mallet, try using that to tap it loose. If that doesn't work, use a scrap piece of wood and a hammer. If it won't come loose by hammering on the block of wood, you can hammer directly on the shaft of the clutch. Beware that when you do this, it may damage the shaft and it won't be able to be reused. With some more hammering and penetrating oil, we've now loosened up the splines from the inner tub to the clutch, and we can see that by lifting up on the tub that it's now loose. Since the clutch didn't fall down on its own, we'll now remove the inner tub and then go back to the bottom to remove the clutch. Now we'll reattach the top and flip the machine back over to access the bottom. Grab onto both sides of the clutch and pull it towards you while wiggling back and forth to release the tub seal. And there it is free. Next, we'll show you to remove the lid lock. Before starting, ensure that the lid is taped closed and unplug or disconnect power to the washer. With the lid taped closed, the first thing that we'll need to do is access the back side of the washer to remove the back cover. Using a Phillips screwdriver, we'll start by removing the 6 Phillips screws. With the screws removed, use a thin prying tool like a knife to pry open the cover. Then lift up and out to remove. With the cover removed, we can now access the lid lock electrical plug here. Lift up on it to remove it. Now depress the locking tab to separate the 2 plugs. Next, depress the locking tabs on the noise filter cover and lift off to remove. Next, the hose on the right, we need to lift up to remove it from the slot, which will give us access to lift up on the wire to release it from the slot. Then push the wire through the hole. Next, remove the 2 Phillips screws on the back that hold down the top cover. With those screws removed, we'll now need to access the front side of the washer. Using a putty knife approximately 6 inches on each side, push it on the clip while lifting up, and repeat the same thing on the other side. Next, what you'll need to do is lift up on the back while pulling forward to remove it from this clip. Next, we'll repeat the same thing on the other side. We'll lift up on the back while pushing forward to remove it from that clip. With the top released, we'll need to pull the top forward so it's overhanging slightly off the front. We can then lift up the top and use something to prop it open. Next, using a Phillips screwdriver, we'll remove the 2 mounting screws on the lid lock. With the 2 screws removed, pull down on the lid lock to remove it. Next, we'll follow the wires down and remove it from the mounting clips. Next, we'll show you how to remove the lid. For this repair, unplug or disconnect power to the washer. To replace the lid, the first thing that we need to do is open up the lid to give us access to the 2 screws on the side. Start by removing the cover on the side, and then removing the 2 Phillips screws. The screws are stainless steel, so be careful not to drop them. Now, flip the washer around, and repeat the same thing on the other side. With the screws removed, we can grab the lid on both sides and lift up to remove. So that's it for this video. If you need any parts for your appliance, you can check out our website, partsdoctor.com. We'll leave a link in the description below. You want to make sure that you're searching with the model number from the tag on your washer to make sure you get the correct parts. If you'd like to view more repair videos on this appliance, you can check out the playlist on our channel. And if you like fixing things, please consider subscribing.